Hey everybody, and welcome to this video on the persona chart in astrology. I am Cassandra, the Saffron Sage, helping you use astrology to evolve. And today we're talking about the persona chart. I had another video recently on the persona chart of the Midheaven and how to reach your highest potential. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out. But I wanted to go more into the really explain and break down what persona charts are, why I love them, and what you need to know to use them. So let's get into the video. So first of all, let's talk about what the persona chart is. So a persona chart is a chart of the first time the transiting sun hits a placement in your chart. That becomes the persona chart of that planet or point. For example, the first time the sun, after you're a baby and you're born, the first time the sun hits the moon, that becomes the persona chart of your moon. The first time the sun hits your midheaven becomes the persona chart of your midheaven. There is no persona chart of the sun because the first time the sun comes back around to its original position, there's already a chart in that in astrology, and that's called the solar return. If you want to know more about solar returns, drop a comment. We could do another video about those. But let's talk more about the persona chart. This was developed by German astrologers named Peter Orban and Ingrid Zinnel. So they came up with this idea. They have a book about it, but it's in German, so I wasn't able to read it. But I was able to check out some info on astro.com that is basically a summary of what they say in the book. Thank you, astro.com, for providing us with this info. And I'm going to put a link below in the description if you want to use this page, this website as a reference to teach yourself or, work on your own persona charts. So again, because that transiting sun hitting the point is the definition of the persona, you could kind of do a persona chart of anything. So if you have a favorite asteroid that's, not very well known, all you would have to do is look in your own natal chart at the first time the sun hit that asteroid from when you were a baby. So on astro.com, if you go down to persona charts, there's two options. You can go to the 9 persona charts, which kind of shows you the 9 main ones all on one page, or you can go to what I do, which is persona chart. And then there's a drop-down box in that chart where you can choose to look at the persona chart of your moon, your sun, your, anything else you want to look at. So we're going to talk about some types of persona charts here. So, for example, the persona chart of the midheaven is one of my favorites to use because it tells you more about your highest potential. The midheaven is what we could be known for. And so the persona chart of the midheaven does not supersede the midheaven. It does not supersede the natal chart. I can't stress this enough. It doesn't replace the natal chart. Think of it like, your natal chart, if there was a magnifying glass to zoom in really, really deeply on a certain placement in your chart. It's kind of like the persona chart. It doesn't replace anything in your persona, in your natal chart. So let's say you're an Aries rising natally, and the way you approach the world is you want to make your mark on it, confidently go after things, make an impression on it, lead the way, initiate, right? Those are all Aries rising type things. Now, let's say your midheaven persona chart is Virgo rising. Well, that doesn't mean that you're not an Aries rising anymore. It means you are an Aries rising always. And when it comes to career, people might see you as more organized. People might see you when it comes to working on the path of your highest potential. You might come across as very controlling, right? You could come across as very in control, very like, I got this handled, I'm handling this. People might trust you. You may come across when it comes to your highest potential, like you want to serve people. And, we could even go deeper, whereas perhaps an Aries rising with Virgo ascendant on their persona chart could possibly explore themes of natural healing, health, or working with the earth, or, supplements or natural beauty or something else kind of Virgo-like. So it could be the spreadsheet side of Virgo, or it could be more of the natural healing side of Virgo that Virgos tend to go after. Now this is just one very specific thing. So this does not mean everyone with a Virgo rising on their persona means that. I'm just trying to illustrate the difference between your natal chart and the persona chart, and how the persona chart does not take the place of the natal chart ever. Your natal chart is your natal chart. It doesn't change. It's always what it is. Can we activate certain placements sometimes through transit and stuff? Yes. Do we have phases where certain placements in our chart are more activated or more in focus? Yes. Are we able to go from the lower expression to the higher expression of any of our natal placements? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And the persona chart gives us more of to me, the persona chart of the Midheaven, why I love it so much, is that it's kind of like a map to your highest potential. So let's say we're looking at the persona chart of your descendant. The descendant is the point that begins the 7th house, the house that represents the very significant other people that we interact with in our life. This can be our significant others, our marriages, our boyfriend and girlfriend, our really close friends, right? Because the 1st house is us, the 7th house is the other people who are important. So the descendant, that's going to be the personality of you, your personality when it comes to significant relationships through your journey of life. Now, that doesn't take the place of any of the relationship information that's in your natal chart. So if you have your 7th ruler in the 10th house, perhaps you meet someone, career and relationships are intertwined for you. Being with the right people will be significant in career. Perhaps at some point in life, you meet someone who becomes a business partner, and that becomes a really significant part of what you're known for, what you do in the world, etc., etc. That doesn't change no matter what your persona chart, descendant persona chart says, okay? So I'll probably say that a lot, but it's really important to always keep that in mind, because it can be really easy to read the persona chart as it's like as equal to the natal chart, and it is not. So the descendant tells you like the personality of the relationship. So like the moon in the persona chart is your innate needs in relationships. And then the aspects to the moon in that persona descendant chart is going to be, what puts stress on those needs, what helps those needs, etc. Your ascendant, I'm going to use myself as an example for this one. Your ascendant in the descendant persona chart, right? So we're looking at the persona chart of your descendant. Your ascendant, the rising sign on that chart, is going to be how your relationships see you. And that's different. We all know that's different than how the world sees us, right? So when I go to work, I'm a Virgo rising. I'm going to organize stuff. I'm going to be pretty quiet most of the time. I'm going to want to assist people. I'm going to, I'm very, very quiet. Now, I also have Saturn conjunct my Mercury, which makes that more, makes me more of a sort of introvert, more of the quiet, serious person at work. Anyway, now my persona chart of my descendant, I'm a Leo rising. So when I'm with people I know and I'm comfortable with, I'm going to be so much more expressive and outgoing in those one-on-one relationships. And I always say that I'm more comfortable one-on-one, or I thrive one-on-one. Now, we all have an ascendant, and we all have an ascendant of our descendant persona chart. Are you guys following me here? But basically, it's telling us our sub-personalities. Okay, so let's say you want to look at the persona chart of your moon. This is going to be the sub-personalities of your emotions. And so, looking at that chart, the ascendant on that chart, that's going to be how people see you emotionally. It's different than your rising, which is how people see you in the world. So, for example, if you're at a therapy session, or if you are, maybe in a support group, or you're with your friends and you're talking about emotions, or you're with your family and emotional matters, or the moon is also like the mother, so matters regarding children, matters regarding our own mothers. When those topics come up, or those areas of life are present, the way people see your emotions is that ascendant in the persona chart. So mine is Pisces. I think mine is Pisces. Let me check that. I'm going to check that because I sometimes mess up my own stuff. Moon, go. So mine is actually Pisces. My ascendant in my persona chart is Pisces, and it's also conjunct the sun. Which means when I am emotional, people are going to see me as too emotional, very, very, very emotional. Perhaps sometimes I'm going to come across as that, like the depth and the wisdom of Pisces, hopefully, right? Hopefully I'm going to come across as that higher version. But have been a lot of people in my life who kind of will react to me if I'm expressing an emotion as if I'm just some total victim, even if I'm not having a victim mindset, just because that Pisces, emotional depth is too much for people. It comes across as victim-y, even when it's just, I understand the Pisces energy as we just feel everything. And people who don't feel everything don't understand what it's like to feel everything. So they'll think like, they'll think that you're being a victim when you just are feeling something. So anyway, I'll stop. I'll digress about my own chart. These are just some examples of different persona charts of, how you can kind of differentiate, the placement within that persona chart from the placement in your natal chart, because that really is the most important thing here. So we're going to do a quick example of how to read a persona chart. And I want to tell you how to read the outer planets, because that's important. So we're going to look at my descendant chart here for this. Let me pull that up really quick. The first thing I want you to know is the outer planets in any of these persona charts, usually the sign of the outer planet isn't super significant, because outer planets don't move fast enough usually to switch a sign within the year. The persona charts are going to all be at some point during that first year of your birth. So, for example, I have Pluto in Scorpio, I have Uranus in Sagittarius, I have Saturn Sag, and I have Neptune in Capricorn. Those do not change in, I don't think, any of my persona charts, because those outer planets don't move fast enough in this case to be in another sign. Someone who has maybe who were born with let's say Uranus at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, they might see that change within the year, but even then it only has one sign it can change to. So when we're reading persona charts or solar return charts, usually we don't factor in the outer planet signs, we factor in the houses that they're in. So going back to this chart, we're looking at how, this descendant persona chart, I have Leo rising, I have Sun in the 8th house of Pisces. So we can just talk about that. That just means in my relationships, in my one-on-one relationships, 8th house, I also have Mercury and Venus here in this 8th house. This is going to be someone who merges with others deeply. I also have Pluto opposite the moon in Scorpio and Taurus. Now, I know I said that we don't really read the sign of the outer planet, but we do consider that opposition, that moon Pluto opposition. This is significant. This really shows that I might have challenges where I'm torn. And in this chart, I'm using Placidus here. The moon is in the 10th, Pluto is in the 3rd. So this opposition, I'm torn between what I want to do in my career versus how to take care of relationships. So there might be challenges where maybe the people who love me the most don't want me to succeed. I mean, that would be the meaning of that. Damn it. Or, for a different person, this can also be like the 3rd house can be the mind, right? And the moon is what we need. So in my relationships, I need them to support my career. I need them to support my career. I need to feel safe to take steps in the world in order for my relationships to be okay. Now, that Pluto there in the 3rd does feel like perhaps there is some kind of challenge. And it's interesting because it's not it's not on the same axis, right? It's not in the 4th house here. So the 3rd house, what's the 3rd house? Environment. It is siblings. It is, what else is it? Like the mind, communication. So perhaps I need to transform my communication in relationships in order to get my needs met in career. Maybe it's hard for me to communicate in relationships how, what I need. And I think of Pluto and like Pluto in the 3rd being really a focus on like wanting to know all the facts. So maybe my desire to know all the facts might be a challenge to what I need in relationships. I'm trying to figure out what this means. So really, this opposition here kind of implies that I have to change my communication style in order to get my needs met in relationships, and possibly even in order to be how do I put it, like be nurturing, because that moon in the persona of the descendant can also be like how I nurture my relationships, right? So that Pluto opposing, pulling me back, the lack of communication probably on my side, or secrets, things like that. So then looking at Jupiter in Pisces. Now, Jupiter has moved to a new sign because it is kind of an outer planet, but it's unique because it goes through a sign basically every year. So Jupiter in that 7th house of Pisces in my descendant chart really does kind of make me feel like I'll always want to be growing in relationships. Oftentimes Jupiter is where we want to keep expanding. With Pisces, it's like, it's like I can never get enough emotional nurturing. I can never get enough of the dream and the ideal in the relationship. And so that's something, it squares over to, is that a square? Yeah, it squares over to Saturn in the 4th in Sag. So we're not going to interpret the Sagittarius part, but Jupiter in the 7th squaring to Saturn in the 4th. What does that mean? Well, maybe there's some kind of restriction in my home life that makes me expect too much out of relationships. So that would be like the typical delineation. And this is 1000% true. Definitely, especially when I was younger, I would idealize things and not really understand that like a relationship is something you work at. Like everything in life that we want, we have to actually work at. My mind did not understand this when I was young. Like I really would just project dreams and not really understand that how am I being today that's going to create that or manifest that, if that makes sense. Like everything in life is something we have to show up to. So that's probably what I would see there. So the North Node in the 9th, perhaps by doing 9th house type things, this can be connected to my relationships. And man, that one is accurate because the 9th house is like long trips. My first major relationship, I was super young. I left my hometown with the guy. I don't think I would have had the strength or the courage to leave without someone else with me. And then my second major relationship, I decided we should move to another country together. So we did that. And then we ended up breaking up there, and that was the whole adventure in and of itself. But it doesn't necessarily mean what you need to do. North Node doesn't always mean this is the lesson you need to learn in relationships, as much as like I think of it as like a direction you might be heading in that descendant chart that is somehow connected to relationships, right? So maybe the people you meet, I would even delineate this as meeting significant people abroad or having significant connections with foreigners. And so this could still continue where I could meet people who live in other countries and we could be friends and stuff, Because remember, the descendant can be your romantic relationships, but it can also be like the significant people in your life. What else could we look at here? I mean, we can look at Venus here in this chart for like what you need, what you need to receive in relationships. Venus here is in the 8th house and it's making a quincunx over to Pluto. That's fucking great. So that's going to be complicated. Okay, that's going to be very complicated where adjustments are needed between my own desire to control, my own desire, especially when it comes to like the things I know, being possessive over my own ideas, for example, which is super fucking true, versus Venus in the 8th being about letting go of the walls and breaking down the walls and having someone who, Venus is in Aries in this chart, and that one moves fast enough to delineate because when I was born, it was in Sag. So that's quite a bit of a different, you have many different options there. So like, in relationships, perhaps I prefer someone with Mercury and Pisces who communicates in an emotional way. really soothing communication, probably. Venus in Aries, I want someone who knows how to make decisions. I do not need no guy who's like, what do you want to do, babe? All day long. That would drive me nuts. And that's not really in my chart as far as my natal chart, right? Because in my natal chart, Venus is conjunct Uranus in Sagittarius. So, that delineation would be like loving people who are adventurous or who are explorers or who support your exploring nature, who have wisdom, right? Like that spiritual wisdom, that gets me, right? Like watching YouTube videos of guys who are like super, super spiritual. I'm just like, But that doesn't mean necessarily that every guy I meet that I fall for has that quality. Anyway, that's a ramble. What else? Okay, we can look at Mars in this chart as desire, like what you want in your relationships. You can read this both ways, from the romantic side to the friendship side. Mars in Sag, conjunct Uranus, means I want someone who is going to take me for a ride, baby. But I do. I want someone who is going to expand my horizons. That conjunction to Uranus is, there's like a shocking element here, like a desire to, meet someone who sort of like shakes things up a little bit, or is a little bit different, or is unconventional. This you see also in my natal chart. So that's no surprise. I have Venus conjunct Uranus there. I like the weirdos. Okay. I like them a little bit different. If someone is not different from me, from like a different culture, skin color, language, something, I'm not interested. Anyway, I feel like I'm telling you way too much about my love life here, but I wanted to give just a quick example of like how to read a persona chart and how it's different than the natal chart, and how it doesn't supersede that natal chart. So my natal chart, I have Pisces on the descendant, Neptune in the 4th house conjunct the sun. That always stays the same. So that's what I have for how to read the persona chart, how to read the different types of persona charts. I'm also going to put a link below for the abridged extract from the book by Peter Orban and Ingrid Zinnel that tells you more about the different types of persona charts and how to read them. This is important because these people literally wrote the book on this type of chart. So in my opinion, when you are using a certain method in astrology, you want to at least start with what the people who came up with the method say. You know what I mean? So don't just decide you think that Venus means something, or that, Saturn means something, when they have definitions already laid out. So yeah, have fun with this chart. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you have questions, and if you want to book a private reading on any of your persona charts, click the link below and we can do that as well. So that's what I have for you guys, and I will see you all in the next video.